back again, and this is Stephen Lake at the Messenger Studios, and we're reporting live tonight from the Messenger Studios, and we have a house full. On the call, I've got Josh Calloway, House of Representatives, for House, Nancy Tate, House of Representatives, Senator Stephen Meredith, and as always, my best buddy, my good host, Mark Burnett.
Steve, it's always great to be here.
Absolutely.
Always. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Yep. Let's see here. Mark, there it is. Okay. Your screen was showing Google on it, and I had to get that out. But anyway,
my apology.
Josh is in there. Say hello, everybody. Nancy, I see you and Steve in there. And
how's it going?
Good.
Hello.
I didn't get to do all the fancy fading and stuff, but it's all good. We're here. So
we're in the new studios.
it's coming together. It's very slapstickish right now.
Yeah, but it's functional. It's functional, so we'll get it all worked out.
Yeah, I hope so. The audio equipment's working and stuff, and slowly but surely. And then on screen we've got obviously Josh. You're in the background. I'm trying to get you pulled up here so they can see your face as well. But we're glad you guys could join us today. It's been an interesting election year. I know that Mark and I have been trying to comment lately on all the things that you see on television, and then how that plays out, especially with the national elections. I mean, it was a clear victory for Republicans across the United States.
I wish we could have got a couple more Senate seats. That would have been the icing on the cake, because then you don't have to worry about people just a couple of people holding up like Senate approvals for different positions in the Trump administration. But 53 is good. 53 is a good number, and means we only have to try to reach out to 7 Democrats to try to get things going.
Yeah. Now, an interesting thing. I mean, obviously, local news. We've done our best here locally to focus on everything governor and down, and then of course Meade County Truth. This podcast's been going for a long time, but we're certainly glad to have all of our designees here today to talk about the truth. That's the truth across the nation.
Right.
There's a lot that you guys have to do that take care of what we do in the state. So
what we wanted to do is invite you guys off. You all, Nancy, you represent Meade County. Josh, you're over in Breckenridge County. I mean, obviously, there's a little bit of Radcliffe and for Nancy, and Josh, is yours over in Hardin County as well? Is that right?
Yes,
your
sir.
district?
That's
Okay.
correct.
What district number is yours? I forgot. What's your district number?
10.
Yeah.
10. Okay. Nancy's is 27, and then Steve Meredith is our state senator in District 5 for the Senate. So what we wanted to kind of bring you guys on and talk about, because there was a lot of talk this last week and a half or so about General Assembly leadership. So you have House leadership, you have Senate leadership, and we kind of wanted to get an idea of, okay, what is the leadership? We wanted to we wanted to see if we can't, explain that to the audience a little bit, let people know what these positions are, and really kind of how they affect the General Assembly and how they affect us back here at home. So I know whichever one of you all want to start, but if you all...
You want to go first?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Very interesting dynamics in the Senate for this leadership election. We have 6 new senators coming in January, and that's the most since I've been in office. From 2016 was my first. And actually, the 8 years I've been there, we've seen almost a 50% turnover in the Senate. So a lot of new members. But
that's not a bad thing. I mean,
it's not.
It's good to get new people and new ideas. And
we've got some interesting people that are coming in this time that I'm looking forward to work with. But what really was a catalyst for change in our Senate leadership elections was the resignation of Senator Damon Thayer,
right,
who was the longest-serving floor leader in the history of the Senate. And after 20 years, he decided to hang it up. So it got to be like a domino effect.
Right.
The first office that we have is the president, which is Robert Stivers, and he was unchallenged. He was reelected, and he's also now the longest-serving Senate president in the history of our Commonwealth. But
right.
With a kind of an asterisk besides that, because it used to be the lieutenant governor was president of the Senate.
Right.
In the mid-'70s, I think it was the date. And the president pro tem follows him, and that's like the vice president.
Right.
And he functions whenever the president's not available, or helps in the week he can. current Senate Pro Tem is David Givens, been there several years as well, and he was challenged by Senator Jay Williams, but David was reelected. The next position, again, was Damon Thayers, which is the floor speaker, and one of the most prominent and visual positions in leadership, because when we're in session, followed on KET, you're on,
Right, you're seeing
on the camera.
Yeah, I've seen him many times. He's probably one of the only people in leadership that I know what they really look like.
Well, and then where I sit in the Senate is right behind the floor leader. In my first year there, Wanda Embry, who's wife of C.B. Embry, she stopped me in the hallway one day and said, "You need to smile more." I thought I smiled.
You're on camera.
She
You
said,
look
"You probably
grumpy."
didn't realize it, but every time Damon speaks, you're on camera." So I try to be a little bit sensitive to that. But that was a very
That's good. That's nice feedback. It's good feedback.
it is. And for that race, Max Wise ran, and Senator Julie Rocky Adams, who was our chair of caucus. But once you announce for one position, you have to relinquish the other position.
Right. You can't run for two at the same time.
And Max Wise was elected to that position, so that's a new person in leadership. And the next was our caucus chair, which previously was Julie Rocky Adams. But again, since she ran,
And we've had Max Wise here before because he was running with Kelly Craft for governor, and so we met him, and he seems like a really good guy, and I didn't, yeah.
he's a solid legislator, has a great track record. He's carried some very heavy bills and has done it admirably, and I think he'll do an excellent job.
Yeah, that's what I meant by good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for our caucus chair, then the two folks running for that were Senator Mike Nemes from Bullitt County and Senator Robbie Mills from Henderson. And Senator Mills, you remember, was the running mate for Daniel Cameron.
Yep.
So we've got two guys who didn't get elected lieutenant governors that are now in leadership. And the last position is our whip position. And well, let me go back to the caucus chair. They're responsible, as the name would indicate, to coordinate our caucus meetings and keep everybody in line, keep the flow of the information going, having the agenda, set the agenda. The last position is the whip position. And this primary responsibility of this position is to count the votes on bills that we're bringing to the floor.
Right. See if they have enough to kind of know what the pre-count is. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
You know, we have a very limited amount of time to pass legislation. If the votes aren't there, there's no sense bringing it to the floor for
Gotcha.
any reason whatsoever, particularly when you have a majority such that we have. So the whip's job is to count the votes confidentially and report back to leadership that, yes, this bill has support, no, this bill doesn't have support. And we have a rule that you have to have at least 16 Republican yeses before you can move a bill forward, because we don't want to rely on the minority party to move legislation forward. So it's a very important position. You got to.
That's not to say it's not bipartisan bills. You just want to make sure that you have majority, that you know you're going to have majority when you walk
Consensus.
in. Yeah, consensus.
Right, exactly. And
So-
again, they're supposed to do this confidentially, and Mike does a great job at that because we don't want to do anything to strain the relationships within our Senate. But
Right.
again, for this next 2-year period, it'll be Robert Stivers president, David Gibbons Senate Pro Tem, Max Wise as floor leader, Robbie Mills as our caucus chair, and Mike Wilson as our Senate whip.
So, was that 5 positions?
Yes.
5.
Yeah.
I thought I was counting, and I was like, I wasn't tick marking them or anything. But so, let's say you wanted to put something on, and I don't mean to. Well, maybe we'll go through everything, and then when we go ahead and go to the House and see how it works, then we'll come back. And I have some questions that maybe it would be really big for both of you. So I don't know, because
I'll go ahead if you don't mind.
I was thinking,
Josh.
Nancy,
Yeah.
you and Josh both, I think, were up for leadership
That's correct.
positions
Yep.
this time.
Yep.
Why don't you tell us about what the leadership positions are over in the House?
Sure. So it's very similar to like Senator Meredith talked about. There's 5 positions in the House as well. We've got the Speaker, which is considered the leader. It's very close to the presidential, and then it's also the pro tem. The Speaker was David Osborne, and so this was the 4th time that he has been elected to be the Speaker for the House.
Now, was there a competition in that?
There was no competition.
So nobody went up against,
No,
okay.
Nobody's going to run against him. That's correct. And then we had David Meade, who's the pro tem, and then this was the fourth time that he's been elected into that position, and Josh Calloway was his opposition. And then we have Stephen Rudy, who's our floor leader. Again, he's responsible for bringing all the bills to the floor and actually making sure that everybody knows what order they are and how they're going to be addressed. And he was unopposed the fourth time that he's been elected to that position. Then we had Suzanne Miles, who's the caucus chair. Again, she sets the agenda, and then it's her responsibility to make sure that everybody's in tune with what's going on. And then I was her opposition.
Gotcha.
It's the fourth time that she's been elected to that position as well. And then the fifth position was Jason Nemus, who is the whip, again, to count the vote, and he was unopposed. So we
Gotcha.
had two positions, the pro tem and the caucus chair, that were opposition. Now, one of the things that's different from our whip is that it is not required that we have a majority or 51, that any bill that's brought to the floor, that it can be carried by the Republicans.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So all that's required is for there to be a majority of the Republicans, and we've had several very controversial bills that have passed on the House floor with only the majority of the Republicans. So if there's 80 Republicans, only 41 had to agree to it.
Right.
And then with the help of the Democrats, then the bill was passed.
Remind me, is it 100?
There's 100 representatives.
100 representatives, and there's
Correct.
38.
38
Yeah.
senators.
That's
okay.
correct, yeah. So,
And we
So-
have 80 Republicans in the House.
yeah, and so we only have to it's only required that we have 41 Republicans in order to pass a bill. Now, that's kind of a moving target, wouldn't you agree, Josh?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
So, you guys took a lot of crap recently too about the whole election process, and just because you didn't get a leadership position doesn't mean that you're not valued in the House. But others would condemn, this and say that, I'd like to set the record straight. I mean, everybody wants to run for a leadership position, but the person you ran against, this was her fourth incumbency.
The fourth, that's correct.
Yeah, so-
and I mean, I'm going to take issue to that, Steve, when you said that we received a lot of crap.
Yeah.
So the only crap that we really received, from my perspective, were that the people that opposed us in our election,
Yeah.
the people that were the Democrats that opposed us, like to make it, demonstrate or to say that we're not valued by our leadership. Just because Josh and I decided to run for leadership
Yeah.
and didn't get elected doesn't mean that we're not
Right.
valued by our
Absolutely.
leadership
I mean-
or by our caucus.
I mean,
Right.
a lot of times when you have, when you have opposition.
Thank you.
In this case, the Democrats versus
Absolutely.
the Democrats versus Republicans in the House or Senate, wherever, they're always going to be looking for how they can split the majority,
Of course.
right?
Yeah,
To try to make their way.
No, I
they'll
like
try
the
to
way
make
you
their
said
way
that.
in.
That was good. That wasn't
Yeah.
a bad way to say
No,
that.
I hate how people do sound bites and they don't give
Yeah.
the rest of the information. You know what I mean?
Well,
Right.
let's look at it from the federal level, and
Yeah.
they just accepted. I mean, they just elected the House Majority Leader for the Senate.
Yeah.
No, the Senate Majority Leader. Excuse me. But just because Rick Scott didn't win doesn't mean that Rick Scott's not valued by his caucus.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Or his
I mean,
constituency.
a lot of
His
us. I mean, a lot of us
constituents.
wanted Rick Scott.
of course.
Because
Well, he's-
we're trying. We want to see
New
President.
faces.
We want to
Yeah.
see President Trump's agenda. Pushed through. We want people who are going to support that. And we look at Rick Scott as somebody who will support that agenda and push and push for it. It doesn't mean that you're always going to have everything a smooth ride, because sometimes everybody sends a senator to represent them and a representative to represent them in whether it's at the state level or the federal level. And so not everything so in Meade County alone, you have 30,000 people. So you're representing 30,000 people here, and then another 15,000 or 18,000 over in something like that.
45,000 altogether.
Yeah,
I
it's around
actually got a
45,000.
report the other day that we're up to like 38,000 people
Yeah.
in Meade County now.
Yeah.
I've not seen that. I'd like to see that. Maybe that's another discussion for another day because I'm always curious to see that we're going up. But I know we were at 30,000 at the last census.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that'd be interesting if we were up to 38. That'd be awesome.
But one of the things, like Senator Meredith talked about, is that there was a retirement in their leadership. Damon Thayer retired, so that forces a change. If there's not a retirement in your leadership, then it is extremely difficult in order to break through that.
Barrier.
Well, I mean,
Ceiling.
'cause
Or
especially
break the
when you all
ceiling.
because. Well, technically, you guys are not a new majority anymore, right?
That's
You've been,
correct.
you all
That's
have
right.
been growing up as a majority for quite a while. So, what the majority in the House
Correct.
started in 16 or 18?
2017.
17,
That's correct,
2017.
2017, that's correct.
So it was a, and so from, I mean, still, it's less than 10 years old.
That's
so
exactly
it's,
right.
It's, so
We're-
it's still
we're still-
growing.
absolutely.
Maybe it's more like an adolescent,
That's exactly right.
majority
Yeah,
now.
that's right.
It takes time to understand what your, the things that your the leadership is trying to get their foothold. And you got to remember, leadership also battled against as a minority
That's right.
for years and years and years before we became a majority. So we have to, I think you have to respect that they went through that. And we talk about that on all kinds of levels, whether
yeah.
it's in the House, the Senate, or just within the party itself,
Yeah.
because, Republicans in the state of Kentucky just became a majority in 2019, 2020.
Yeah.
I think 2020 is when we actually moved in Kentucky over the line.
I think it's interesting, though, that while we may have a majority, though, I think it's due diligence upon all of us to hold one another accountable.
Absolutely.
We don't just all dress in white and show up and all agree. We still should have good discussion and debate to ensure that we're representing each constituency, regardless of, that we're all in the Republican Party. And I think that that's what we've seen a lot from this room and doing. I think that's where it rubs the feathers a little bit when people want to construe something as a negative. It's actually a positive that we're willing to hold one another accountable. Otherwise, we'd be a rogue party, I would think.
Yeah, well, it would definitely be for a boring time because everybody would just go up and rubber stamp it.
Yeah.
We send, I'm going to say Nancy because she's our representative here in Meade County. But Josh, we send you and Nancy. Our counties send you guys to represent us, and we don't expect you guys to just rubber stamp what's going on.
Yeah.
They have to meet our principles and such, and we really appreciate the fact that you guys stand up to those to leadership a little bit. I mean, I think that leadership has the best,
Intentions.
they have the best intentions. They're trying to move Kentucky forward in a conservative way, but it doesn't always meet the same. Our criteria for what that means doesn't always meet what their criteria means.
Right.
And we are super happy with the fact that you guys, and I know Brett County is happy with you, Josh, that you guys stand up to those things in the House. I'm not always happy with the House leadership. I was telling Steve, I think the other day that, at the Republican Party meeting, that it's of the two sides, I probably would rather, I probably have more to say about the House than I do the Senate. Both have good and bad points, but I've watched the House, I guess, more, and I expect I expect that my representative is not going to lose a position because she stood up to somebody or she stood up for our values.
She pointed out what was right.
And I'm going to back her 100% of the time because I send her there to not just be a rubber stamp. I send her there to represent our values, and I think Nancy does a great job. And Josh, I think you do as well for your county.
Yeah.
So,
Debate and dissent are the bedrock of the democratic process.
Yeah.
And so with the House, what makes it more interesting is that there's 80 Republicans and from all across the state. And I think one thing that Nancy and I have continued to try to do is to make sure that our rural principals and our rural counties are represented inside of a leadership that is a lot more urban driven than the rest of the body per se. And
Yeah.
so I think that's what we've tried to do, is to make sure. And so the only way you do that is you debate and you have dissent. At the end of the day, the votes is all that counts. And so that's you know, it's going to move forward if it has the votes, and it's not. But we still want to represent our values and our principles for the districts that we represent.
See, and I think that that's constructive. I think it's when you do have good debate and you do point out things. 'Cause, it's always another set of eyes is always good for anything, especially when y'all are reading the bills and stuff like that. And instead of just like Mark said to his cliche, the rubber stamping. But at the end of the day, too, we're not being destructive, we're being constructive. You know what I mean? And I think that that's where I feel like our opposition party, a lot of the stuff that they try to do, it becomes destructive and not productive to the democratic process. It's always trying to tear things down instead of trying to lift things up. So, and we clearly know that didn't work in any case. But to y'all's point, anytime that there's good debate and dissent, to make somebody think differently or to look at something from a different set of eyes, that can only lead to better things because, I didn't think of it that way. Or that's a great perspective. You know what I mean? I don't agree with you, but I didn't actually see it through that lens, and now I do because of you, and I'm going to go back and take a second look. That's constructive.
That's right.
But destructive, you suck. Don't do that, and no real value added. That just seems very destructive in today's time. And for a lot of reasons, that's why a lot of people were very disgusted. I mean, I think that's why we had a red wave across the nation, because we're just tired of that destructiveness. And I think that the only way we get somewhere today is with the constructive criticism, but also valued, I don't think that there's anybody in legislation today that sees you as invaluable. You know what I mean? A disagreement doesn't mean that you're less valued or that you're less important. It just means that they didn't necessarily agree with the way you see it or believe that it could be better, but you were able to convey your point, and that's what we should be doing in legislature, I believe. And I feel like y'all are going to always step on somebody. If you go into legislation, I would think where you feel like you're not going to step on somebody's toe, you're probably in the wrong job anyway. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry.
I want to say this. I don't mean to leave Steve Meredith out here.
No.
There was a very specific thing that Nancy and Josh went through in this last year or so that really was near and dear to my heart as far as how the reactions and things were. So that's why I bring that up. But
one of the things,
it's not always contentious. It's not a contentious thing, but sometimes the reaction seems contentious. So
one of the things that I'd like Senator Meredith to talk about, and had to change the subject just a little bit, is that now we've talked about the different leaderships within the different camps, the Senate and the House. Now let's talk about how the Senate and the House have to work together, or haven't, or have not, or need to, or better work together between the House and the Senate. And so I think that.
That's a good point. How do the two chambers work together, or to make things happen?
That's right.
Well, that is a challenge. You would think it'd be easier since we've got supermajorities in both chambers, but it's not.
But supermajorities are made up of people.
That's right.
And people are people from the beginning of time to the end of time.
That's right.
It reminds me of one of the first conversations I had when I was in
Absolutely.
Frankfurt about the number of bills that are filed, and we were acting on a bill that I thought was absolutely ridiculous. And I was lamenting to Senator Julie Rocky Adams about that. I said, we need to get a little bit more focused here. And she's hearing me ramble. She said, I hear you, Steve, but every bill that's filed is important to somebody. And that's important to remember. We have 138 legislators. Everybody has their own agenda, and you got to bring it kind of together. I think the best two sessions that we had since I've been in office were 2017 and 2019, where we developed a top 10 list of what we need to do.
I wanted to bring that
Right.
up tonight because you had mentioned that in a couple of our other shows earlier on, and I was kind of curious if that's going to happen.
We have gotten away from that. And I think part of the problem is we've had so many new legislators, particularly in the House, since I was elected, that everybody wants to establish themselves. And one of the challenges we have is we file too many bills. My first session, I think we had like 750 bills. This was a 30-day session. This last 60-day session, we had over 1,200 bills that were filed, and that's too much legislation.
Yeah.
And everybody's lobbying and pushing to get their bills passed, and that's not the best way to do it. And I think as a result of that, it kind of gets lost amongst our leadership as what we're trying to accomplish. We need to be a little more focused. And
What's the vision?
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
What's the vision?
What's the strategy?
Where do we want to be in 20 years? Not just the next step for Kentucky. What does Kentucky look like 20 years, 25 years down the road? And because you got to do that now. You got to start the planning and the development for that. But that's a good point.
The proof of that pudding is the 2017 session where we did right to work, repealed prevailing wage. 2018, we repealed, reduced the personal income tax for the first time.
Right.
And we're still in march to do that. And I think that more than anything has really catapulted our state forward as far as our economic development. And that's overlooked a lot of times. This next session, we're going to.
Well, the governor says it's all him.
Oh,
Of
yeah.
course,
You
it
know.
is. Of course.
This is the guy who has never, ever talked to us, but yeah, he
Yeah.
does.
Osmosis. He does it by osmosis. Right.
Appreciate you clarifying that. I thought it was about Ouija board, but
Ouija board.
yeah. But we'll take the step to reduce it to another half a percentage point, and that's so important. Once we've accomplished that, since we started in 2018, based on the median income, family income in Kentucky, we will have put over $1,500 a year back into families' pockets.
And that we appreciate it. I mean, because it's going out in other areas. So
That's right.
it's great to hear, to know that our Kentucky legislature is doing their part to try to stem that. Even before we knew this was going to happen, you all started that trail, and it's almost prophetic a little bit that you all did that, because now we're feeling it even worse on the other end, and hopefully the policies that President Trump's going to bring in is going to be able to bring us back the other way, and then we'll be able to actually get ahead instead of just treading water.
But we have some cynics within our own party who say, well, this really wasn't a tax cut because you've raised sales tax on all these other items. Bear in mind that back in 2017, 50% of the income in Kentucky was exempted from taxation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
40% of your working age adults that were not in the labor force, that leaves a very small percentage of people paying the full tax burden. And who's that? Working families in Kentucky.
That's right.
And this reduction that we're undertaking right now, that goes into working families' pockets. And you really put this thing in perspective, as I said, based on the median family income in Kentucky, we're putting over $1,500 a year, each and every year, back in families' pockets. You'd have to buy over $20,000 of these new taxable services before the sales tax revenue would be greater than the tax reduction we're giving you personal income tax.
Yeah.
So now you've got money to buy these.
I mean, because it's the sales tax is 6%. I've got to buy a lot of stuff to get the $1,500 in sales tax.
That's right.
Over $20,000.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So
That's
it's
right.
and I get
That's
it.
not even counting food and medicine.
Yeah.
Right?
So
And those people, that historically haven't paid taxes, they got to pay a little bit now, but this makes for a fair tax. Everybody should have to pay.
I've always been a proponent of a consumption tax over an
Yeah.
income tax, and I really wish we could get there.
Especially if you're not working and you're receiving government aid and you want to go buy a 55-inch, 60, 72-inch, or 85-inch television to hang on your wall. Well, we're going to get that back for 21% needs versus wants,
I think it would be very difficult at this point to do it on the federal level. I wish they could do it on the federal level. Everybody would balk at it because the fact that they don't realize that, hey, I'm going to put, whatever your income. Let's say you make $50,000 a year and you're paying probably around $5,000 in federal income tax on that. It's around a 10% number. It's probably a little less than that at $50,000, but you're just paying somewhere around $5,000 in income tax. And if I move to a consumption tax, then you got to get a long way before you get to that to that level, depending on what the number is, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But if I'm paying $5,000, I'm paying that 100% of the time. And the consumption tax, when I'm just being taxed on what I buy, I have the opportunity to save on taxes by just being prudent about what I.
You get to choose.
I get to choose
choose, that's
what I. Yeah. If I want something, I pay taxes for it, and then the government gets what they need, and that's when the economy is moving. When people are buying stuff, that's when the economy is moving, and it's I think it's much easier. There was a time, in the late 1800s, we didn't have any income tax didn't exist until the 1900s, right? And so we were still a wealthy country. Nowadays we've moved so much, I think, and I can't get into the all the different aspects of not taxation, but the entitlements, right? We've moved, we've built ourselves on, built up all these entitlements that it's hard to 50% of the I think it's 50% is just in Medicare and Medicaid, right? And it's like 50% of our budget or something like that, or Social Security. It's Medicare.
Pass-through dollars.
Yeah, exactly. So so I mean, how do you can't battle that, because if you start, people see you taken away, but at the same time, if you go to a consumption tax, they think that you're taxing them more, and they don't, and that's because it comes out of their paycheck. They don't have to pay taxes. Let me tell you, you really feel it when you have a small business and you have to actually go write a check to somebody, to the federal government for the taxes. And now it's like, it used to be you could just wait till the end of the year if you're a sole proprietorship. Now it's like, nope, I want you to pay every month.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, they even send you a letter saying, hey, this is how much you made last year. We expect that you're going to probably make about the same. We're expecting you to send us, 1/12 of this amount every month. And it's like, man, it's just the administration of that makes it hard on a small business.
So let me turn this a little bit and go in a new direction. So,
Great.
All right, so we've got the Senate. We've got a leadership set for the Senate. Now we've got a leadership set for the House. The election is over. You guys are gearing up. You're getting ready to go back into the legislative session. You've each got goals and things. You've been traveling all summer since the last legislative session. A lot to be lauded about for what y'all have accomplished in the last legislative session, especially with the reserve, the monies, the return of monies back into the schools across the state as a result of what was it, House Bill 5 or 1, House Bill 1 last year. So now, just to kind of go around the room, but what you get ready for the big game, right? You go through your little routine of everything to get hyped up and ready for the game. Where are you guys at mentally as we're going into the holidays? You've got a lot more things on your plate because even though the elections are over, you still got public engagements. How do you get ready to work? The agenda that you have set to help your constituency when you step foot back in Frankfurt. How does that take off now that who's in all these seats?
I don't think there's a single approach to it. Everybody's a little bit different. In my case, my focus is going to be on healthcare, because I think it's one of the biggest crises that's facing our state and America right now. We're spending $13,000 per capita on healthcare in the United States. The next closest country is Germany at $8,500. And our primary competitor in the economic market is China. They're spending about $875. We cannot be competitive in the international market with that kind of disparity in healthcare costs. And aside from that, it's crushing working families. No one can afford healthcare anymore.
Right.
And we've got to change that dynamic, or literally I think it will cause our economy to collapse. And what I'm focused upon is our Medicaid program. When I came in 2017, that budget was right at $10 billion. This year, it's going to hit $19 billion.
Wow.
And I tell you, it doesn't need to be that way.
And we're just talking Kentucky.
Just Kentucky. And there's enough money in the system already to take care of man, woman, and child in the country if we spend it the right way. But that's the problem. We're not spending it the right way. So my legislation focuses on trying to address those inequities, particularly for rural Kentucky. 40% of our population lives in rural Kentucky, but only 17% of our primary care physicians are there. And we wonder why our healthcare outcomes are so bad. Yeah. That's one of the reasons.
I mean, yes, if we're here in Brandenburg, we have our primary care physicians and things here. So we have, but if I'm going to do anything, major scans or anything like that, I've got to go to Louisville or Elizabethtown or over in Corden. Corden's another small community, but it's in Indiana, not in Kentucky. So, and right now I spend a lot of my time over there for scans and things, and it's because, because we don't have all the facilities that we need even in a town. Because I don't consider, Brandenburg's a small town. It's a rural town, but it's not as rural as other towns in Kentucky. We've got a lot of good stuff. I mean, we have
a bypass. What are you kidding me? We're big time.
We have traffic
big time.
lights here. We have traffic lights and lots of pizza. Lots of pizza here.
And Mexican.
And lots of Mexican, lots of Mexican food. But where I'm coming from is that. Because I talked to my doctor, and they had to sell they had an independent practice, and they had to sell their independent practice to U of L, and they said most of the in talking to them, it was like a lot of that had to do with the fact about Medicaid and not getting paid because of all the hoops and stuff you had to jump through to get. Maybe it was Medicare, not Medicaid.
I'm sure it's probably both of them.
Because they don't always get paid. Their piece of it, because they have to hire administrators to be able to try to communicate and wiggle through all the different rules and things. So we talked about on a previous call with you, Steve, I think, where that was one of the bills that you all were trying to get through to limit the number of
bureaucracy.
Managed care organizations.
Managed care organizations. Thank you.
We have 6. And, we have 1.7 million of our population on Medicaid. 6 MCOs, managed care organizations, administer that program. Tennessee, ironically, also has 1.7 million of their population on Medicaid, and they do it with 3 MCOs.
Yeah, and see, what people don't realize is that that's not giving you less options. It's giving the doctors a cleaner path to be able to get paid
instead of having to deal with 6
somebody
different
that
ways
knows how to do it this way. Not with MCO 1, MCO 2, 1 through 6, they have to have basically they have to hire extra people just to know how to maneuver through that.
Because each MCO has a different set of rules. It would be like you being engaged to build a house with 6 separate
construction companies.
Yeah. Can't be done.
Yeah.
I talked to a primary care physician last session about how much of her day she spent on just administration of health care. She said, for the Medicaid program, she said right at 2 hours a day.
Wow.
So if you can do the math on this and divide it even half, that means she gets to see 4 more patients a day. That's 20 patients a week. And you take it all out, she can see almost 1,000 more patients a year.
Right. I mean, that's huge for us.
Yeah,
that's huge for us. I mean, and a lot of times, the time they're actually spending with us in the room, sometimes it's not even 30 minutes. It's probably 15. So if it's 2 hours, 2 hours a day or what have you, right? That's a huge amount, right?
So Josh, how are you gearing up for going into the session? What's up your sleeve, man?
Well, actually, this is my favorite time of the year in regard to a campaign year.
Okay.
So we're headed into Thanksgiving. And one of the things that I love to get geared up is time with family. It's a breather time. Election's over. We're working on bill drafts. We got a lot of that going on, but just kind of resetting, spending time with family, being able to understand and look around and see why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it's really a great time for me. We'll move into December. We'll have our caucus retreat, and that is where we'll meet together as a caucus, and we'll go through legislation and kind of do some priority setting and learn a lot more, about as a whole what we will be doing.
Sure.
But those are the things that we're working on. I have, way too many bill drafts already ready to go, as Senator Meredith was talking about. But just trying to narrow that down as to what the priority is going to be, what do we think we can actually move, and then what is actually something that's got to get done right now. And I'm always looking at the youth and looking at our kids and how can we better protect them. And
great point.
That's where my
that's
sights
awesome,
are set.
because it's definitely something in this day and age we need. We need people looking out for our kids.
I know this year, right before the election, the education results came out for the reading levels and how they did on all the test scores. There was a moratorium on before we could release all those results. And, each county across the state of Kentucky is obviously different, but y'all are most concerned about the children in your districts, and as you should be. But the growing concern is education and reading levels, and we kind of suck. We're in last place in a lot of things, in comparison to other states when we look at our children, our reading, writing, arithmetic, and all that other stuff. And so I'm glad to hear that you want to take a vested interest in our children. I'm sure some of that focus will go into education and some other areas. No doubt.
Yes, sir. I'll be back on the education committee. So
Good.
Well, Nancy, once you get your turn, I have a question for all of you guys. It kind of goes back to what we talked with Steve earlier. But how do you prepare?
Yeah, so the same thing. I mean, I'm on several different committees and worked a lot with Senator Meredith this summer. We're co-captains for, he's a contract review and I'm capital planning advisory committee. So we've worked together to figure out if we've got the statutes in place in order to make sure that there's not frivolous use of our money. And some of the departments going outside of their planned budget by millions. In one case, it was 346% over the budget. So we've worked together and we'll continue to work together to make sure that the required statutes are in place for that. But I think that one of the things that we all need to concentrate on, in addition to everything, is that economic development.
Yeah.
We've got 65% more economic development in our region than anywhere else in the state. And
True.
it's I guess it's kind of flowing out from Jefferson County into our counties. But, in some regards, we have to work really hard to make sure that we keep that economic development going and that we have the proper infrastructure in place to support that, not just today, but tomorrow.
Right, exactly. And that's, I think it's important because when you talk about infrastructure, it's not about just catching up to where we need it. It's where do we want it to be?
Stand the test of time,
Where are we? I mean, because do we need wider roads? Do we need, freeway type roads in our area? I'm not pressing for freeways. Trust me. I'm just saying that, we need, because moving goods quickly and safely is a very important piece of having work being done in Meade County. So if we can, we have the river, so and there's rail that comes here. It's here. So if we have that infrastructure, and then we just have to make sure that what's the plan to maybe widen the bridge with Indiana, right?
That's right.
To be able to move a little bit more across the river quickly. Are we going to widen 313 out to E-Town so we can get to 65 a little bit quicker, a little bit easier? 64 in Corydon.
Right. You can't forget 79 as well.
Right. 79 is going to be right because that's getting into Josh's area, right? To help us be able to do inter-county commerce a little bit better, right? A little bit easier. Some allowing farmers to move their goods to market faster. So those are things that we want to definitely look at, and especially the infrastructure and what that means. But who? So the question I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's okay.
Who sets the vision? Right.
Yeah.
Is it just the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House, or somebody? How do we get to a vision of what we want Kentucky to be? And my question is how far out are they looking? Are they looking at 5 years? That's very narrow in my opinion. Are they looking at 50 years? Maybe that's a little too far. But 25 years, 30 years?
Well,
I think, to be fair to both leadership teams, in all practicality, they don't look beyond 2 years, because that's a budget cycle. Because you never know what revenue you can have available. You don't know how changes we've made over the previous 2 years are going to impact future revenues and expenses. But that's tough for them to do. We know in very broad terms what we want to do, as Nancy said, create additional jobs in Kentucky, throughout Kentucky. But we have to have the infrastructure to support that. So that's like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg. And when we have our caucus retreats, ours is December 11th, 12th, and 13th, we'll try to develop some direction, but then it goes to leadership to go to House leadership and say, here's where we want to go. Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
And let's try
But
to.
you're really looking at just this next year or two, because this is a budget year, right? No, we just did the budget.
Last year was a
We
budget
just did
year.
a budget
This
year.
is a
So this
shorter
is a short
legis-
season.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
Yeah.
something we focused on this last session, and we'll probably see it the next 3-4 sessions, budget sessions, is workforce development. Because again, we've recruited all these industries, but we don't have the workforce to take care of them.
That's right.
So that's going to be a long-term proposition for us. And we've made an investment in some areas to try to address that. But we'll have to do it every 2 years to see how that's changed. So,
Well, to fund it.
yes.
But the vision of what you want to do can go much further out, because that's if you say, hey, what do we want Kentucky to look like in 20, let's say 20 years, and then you start backing that up to, okay, what is that? What has to happen? What are the? I always use this thing called vision, mission, goals, and initiatives. Right. Yeah. So the vision is, where do we want to be 20 years from now? Then I need to know, what are my missions that get me there. And then the goals are set. To be able to complete the missions, and those will give us our gateways to say, hey, okay, we're working towards those. And then the initiatives are the individual actions that we do to attain goals. So using that type of, so when I think about this kind of stuff, that's how I think about it. I think about, how do I back myself from 20-year vision back to the 2-year budget, right? What do I need to do in this 2-year budget to see that happen? And so those are the initiatives that we're talking about.
Well, the challenge, Joe, was that we've got competing interest. You know, we've got pretty much rural Kentucky, and then we've got Jefferson County, we've got Fayette County,
Right.
northern Kentucky, and now Bowling Green is starting to emerge as one of those economic leaders. And it's hard for us all to lean in the same direction when we have our own agenda. And those bigger urban areas are doing exactly what we're talking about. They want more money for infrastructure so they can grow even more, but sometimes rural Kentucky gets left behind.
Yeah.
I think this budget, this last time, was the first time since I've been in the legislature that we've really made a commitment to rural Kentucky. Particularly proud of what we've done with the internet. What we did with funding for our schools was certainly big. But
Absolutely.
we need to do more. And that's where we fight amongst ourselves, because we need to deliver as well. We're expected to deliver for our respective districts. And so that's where a lot of fight and animosity comes into is, well, you got yours funded, I didn't get mine funded.
Right.
Well, you can see a lot of this stuff in the League of Cities has been politicking pretty heavily about getting after these cities that don't have a fee or an income tax. We've been seeing a lot of that lately. So, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see more of rural Kentucky as the state income tax goes away.
With the smaller municipalities.
Yeah, the smaller municipalities taking on and finding their own
You all
resources.
give it to us, they want to take it away.
Yeah.
I think
No, I don't mean that in a negative. The cities, I know, but the cities are allowed to govern. It's their city. I get it. And, it's just like we don't want the federal government telling the state what to do. So we don't want the state telling the city what to do. So in those same sense.
Well, but I think it's a little different, because the cities are actually, it's legislature, state, it's the state legislation that allows cities to exist.
No, I don't disagree
Right?
with that. But
They're part of the plan for how to govern the state.
I didn't mean to steal and turn it into another direction. What I was trying to comment on, though,
Well,
is
you should know.
cities,
That's one of my pet projects,
Well,
right?
I think it's exemplary of our legislation to make attention to our rural communities, because they should not get left behind.
Right.
Farming communities are the hub of our state, and roads are required, and water lines are required, and other key assets, are required for infrastructure, bridges, etc. But these other cities that are thriving, they have abilities to raise revenues through taxation and other things in order to help build their infrastructure. So it's not just up to the state's responsibility. So I thought it was good due diligence of you guys to make sure that it was share the wealth, right?
Well,
Commonwealth.
if the urban areas truly want to become great urban areas, they have to understand that you can't do it without the support of rural Kentucky.
That's right.
You have
Yeah.
to lift them up. There's a symbiotic relationship here.
The rural
And
workforce.
Right.
I'm not sure they
Absolutely.
understand that. I had this argument or discussion with a House member just recently. He was talking about how Jefferson County is still the main economic driver for Kentucky. I recognize that, but I remind him, said, you get our healthcare dollar, you get our recreation dollar, you get a good chunk of our workforce. We would trade that in a heartbeat for those very things. And whenever you build up rural Kentucky, you rise the tide for everyone.
That's right.
Yeah, but the thing is that it's not just, hey, do we? This is my opinion. It's not just hey, how do we take care of healthcare in rural communities or a specific thing? It's how do we build a workforce? How do we get new employers to invest in rural Kentucky, right? New core here. You know, a lot of people don't like it. Most people like it. Most people like the fact that we have another employer here that's bringing good paying jobs to this community.
That's right.
And then that allows us to maybe start having these discussions, or, you know, because housing goes up and things like that. So now more money's coming into the county through just through the fact that our housing is worth more. So now we're paying a little bit more in taxes. Well, it's kind of like, you know, if you have those jobs, then your communities automatically kind of afford that. Maybe not every community, not every person. That's true. But then that's when you start looking at, okay, well, how do we take care of the poorer people who maybe can't afford those rate increases, and maybe there's something that can be done there. I don't want to leave them behind either, but at the same time, it's kind of like a natural thing. If I can bring more business and more manufacturing and things to rural Kentucky, then a lot of these things that we're talking about kind of take care of themselves through the fact that there's more local dollars to be spent by the government to help support those things. So it kind of like there's two pieces of it, right? We can build up local. I really hate the idea of an income tax, though. That's another subject for another day.
I don't think you need it because the current
That's exactly
structures
right. You
take
don't
care
need it.
if you
That's right.
grow your economy.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
right.
remember people constantly
Yeah.
that, you know, Walmart did not make their fortune in urban America.
No, it's all rural.
It was all rural.
And you need to run state government like a business, and every dollar we spend, there should be a measured return on investment. And I'm confident that the greatest return on investment right now is investing in rural Kentucky, because it's like going to be like a growth stock.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to be, and that's going to lift the tide for everyone. We don't have to raise people's taxes when you generate new revenue through new jobs and more people moving to the state. So that's
Hey.
where the focus has to be.
Hey,
Yeah.
Josh, would you like to address Mark's question about the mission and the strategy, and do we have one in the House, and how does that correlate with the one in the Senate?
Yep, the 2 points that I want to make. One, when you talk about that vision, there's two sides to the vision, and that is, what do you want the state to look like in 20 years, 25 years? But there's also, how is this piece of legislation going to impact the future? So when we create legislation, I may not be there, but another 2 years or 4 years or 6 years. And so part of that vision is just simply, how is this going to affect the generation coming behind us? And so sometimes we may not be able to see how to plan exactly as we would want to, but we can make sure we ask that question, how does this impact the future, as best as we can? The second point is, when it comes to that vision, the House is a little bit different than the Senate, because inside of the body, there is the Committee on Committees, which is made up of the minority and the majority leadership team. And we have a rule that specifically says that the Speaker, who is the chairman of the Committee on Committees, he decides every bill that gets brought to the floor. And so that's why it's incumbent upon us and important for us to have the right people there in those seats, is because those are the people that we're working with to get our agenda moved forward. And so we will do collective goal setting. We usually do at our caucus retreat. But also our rules, Nancy and I introduced some new rules this past legislative session, trying to get some of that change just to broaden the voice of every legislator. But it's a little bit different than the way that the Senate is set up, because basically when bills come, they get referred. In the House, they don't get referred unless the Speaker moves them.
Yeah, and in other states,
Is that accurate?
That's perfect, absolutely. And in other states that I've actually talked to, there's the Rules Committee, And it's not the speaker that's the head or the chair of the rules committee. It's another person that's elected by the body in order to be the chair of the rules committee. So right now what you have is that you have the speaker of the House, who is the chair of the rules committee, who is the only person in the House that can determine whether or not a bill is eligible to move.
Wow.
So you've got 100 legislators, of which one person is making
That gives a
sole
veto
decision.
power.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you should not have veto power in the no individual person, no individual representative should have veto power in the House of Representatives.
That's one of the, and so as Josh said, that was one of the reasons why we introduced new rules, but it's difficult when you're the sole person or the 5 people that are making decisions for all of Kentucky. It's very difficult for them to be willing to accept changes to the rules
Yeah.
when they're the ones that have all the power. So that's one of the reasons why I know myself, and I don't want to mean to speak for you, Josh, but that's one of the reasons why I felt that it was very important for there to be at least somebody who challenges these 5 people. And with different concepts to protect, from my perspective, I was bringing the conservative voice in as well as the rural voice.
Yeah.
And it's very important for us to challenge them. Otherwise,
How many people from the House leadership are from rural Kentucky?
I'm going to say none of them, Josh. What do you want to say?
I mean, where are they from?
Well,
Yeah, I would.
go ahead.
I mean, I know the
Jefferson
speaker's
County.
speaker is Oldham
He's
County,
which is the
Oldham.
suburb of Jefferson.
Well, and it's the per capita. It's the richest it's the richest county in the state.
Yeah.
So, do you think that they?
It's
have
not
the
rural
same-
anymore.
Oh, Oldham County.
Oldham County is not rural anymore.
Per capita is the richest county in the state. So therefore, Oldham County has very different issues than Breckenridge, Meade, Letcher,
Right.
all these eastern and western Kentucky. So then you've got, so David Meade. Where is he from? Lincoln?
Lincoln County.
Yeah, he's from
He's
Lincoln
from Lincoln County.
Yeah, I think he probably represents 2 or 3 different counties, but primarily he's from Lincoln County.
That's pretty rural, right?
It's pretty rural. That's probably of the
He would
What's
be
the largest
most
city there?
rural
Danville's
of-
probably the
of
largest.
all
Danville.
of them.
Well, Danville's
Yeah.
mediocre, right?
yeah, no, not mediocre. Danville's not mediocre, but size-wise.
That's exactly right.
I wanted to
Yeah,
make sure we
clarify that. size-wise.
Danville's a great place.
Great place,
Yeah.
absolutely. But size-wise.
Well, it's a college
I
town.
wanted to save you there.
Yes, thank you. Yes,
This goes out over there, you know.
Right,
It's a
exactly.
college town, so that gives it a little bit of a different feel than most
Yeah.
rural communities.
Right.
Right,
That's
right,
true.
right.
I
And
mean,
it's- and it's
Bowling
a
Green
li-
was, college town, but,
Well,
it's
a
grown
liberal-
around it,
it's
right?
it's a liberal arts as well, which makes it probably just a little bit not conservative. Yeah. And then we've got Stephen Rudy. Where we say he's from, Josh?
He is actually from the west part of the state.
He's Paducah, Hickory.
He is
Yeah.
in the 1st district, and so he's just kind of west of Paducah a little bit, but. And then
So
we
it's
have,
that's farmland now. That's farm out
Suzanne
there. So
from Davis County.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so-
I would
no,
say
that's Oldham.
Stephen
That's
would be the
Owensboro,
most-
right?
That's correct, yeah. And then you've got Jason Nemus, who's from Jefferson County. Yeah.
So 4 out of the 5
4 out
are
of the 5.
well, 3 out of the 5 are probably from, I would say, urban areas. 2 out of the 5 are
Sort
at
of.
least semi.
Mhm.
Danville's, we'll call it semi or
That's exactly
rural,
right.
and then the one that it's actually true rural down in Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
Well, at least we have one. I mean, it's like, but most of our counties are rural counties.
Most of our
So
counties are
how do
rural
we
counties.
how do we not have more
Yeah.
representation in leadership if we have out of 100 seats, there's only maybe how many? I mean, what are we talking about? Like maybe 20% are in really rural or urban areas, right?
Yeah, that's a good guess. 80,
20, yeah,
80,
something like that, like
Yeah, somewhere
80%, or maybe it's 75, 25, but that's
probably
more than
85.
enough for you to say, and the ones in Louisville are Democrat anyway, right?
That's
so
right.
they're not determining it right now who the House Speaker is.
Well,
Right, or the leadership.
So when you're saying the representatives, there's several from Jefferson County now. Yeah, I think we've got 8 representatives, maybe more, that are from Jefferson County.
Right, but 8 out of 100, and then there's
Yeah.
probably another 12 from because like you don't represent Elizabethtown, but you've got Radcliffe, which
That's
is
right.
Elizabethtown-ish. You're the same, Josh, right? You have a little bit of Hardin County. Who's in Elizabethtown?
That's Stephen Bratcher.
So, I know
that's
Stephen.
correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah,
Yep.
Stephen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
But collectively, y'all are in the same district as far as party.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
We're all in the
We're just
same-
trying to say because
yeah.
like Elizabethtown, I would not consider a rural area. Elizabethtown is very much urban.
In reality, it's
conservative, but it's
because the
urban.
Democrats are such a small number anymore. The biggest divide in Frankfurt is not Democrat and Republican; it's urban versus rural.
yes, sir.
Right.
Yes,
Again, with
that's right.
40% of our population.
But that's the
rural,
thing that
Kentucky
gets
makes us
me.
a minority.
If we're 75% of the 75% of the House seats are in rural Kentucky, maybe even if it's 51%
Yeah,
are in
I
rural
know,
Kentucky,
Yeah, I know from my perspective.
then the rural Kentucky should rule the House.
Well, that's what, from my perspective, that was one of the reasons why, I was kind of just hoping that rural representatives would be more open to having more rural leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And that's the
otherwise-
hope. I mean,
That is,
I'm
it
not.
is.
I'm not trying to discount the leadership. I'm not.
Neither. Me neither.
I'm just saying that you would think that hey, maybe we should have 3 out of the 5 positions.
Yeah.
Where we do have some majority is with chairmanships. And that's, I think, where we have to work on is allow our committee chairs to have.
But if
more-
you have one
But see,
person that says you
right.
can't move your bill forward,
That's right.
House
That's
is
in the
different.
House.
That's
exactly
hard.
Right. Right. And so even
Yeah.
even then, whenever at this point, the chairs don't even get to decide what bills move before their committees. Yeah. So the speaker is the only person that can determine what bills are eligible to move.
Well, y'all better have one heck of a retreat coming up then if y'all want
Yeah.
anything to move in the house this
I mean,
year.
it's just a matter of. I mean, I get it. Right now, the speaker is, the speaker has a lot of power, and
Well, I
for
guess
me,
that
I think that gives them too much power.
They could throw a coup. I mean, I guess you could be like we saw in the House of
Yeah.
Representatives where they say, "Well, we want to propose a vote to remove you." I'm just. I'm.
Yeah, you're talking about in the
I'm
federal.
not putting. Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
not putting. I'm just kidding. But,
But the coup would have been. I mean, we have the opportunity.
I'm just kidding.
But we have the opportunity
Yeah.
because we have leadership elections. So that's not necessarily a coup. That
No,
is
it's
the-
right.
No, he's
that's the-
using
I
it
know, but I'm
loosely,
saying-
so
no, but I'm
loosely.
saying,
Yeah.
no, but
Yeah.
I am saying is that
Yes.
the process allows for the opportunity for that to happen.
Yeah, and y'all voted, and
in
it didn't
a
happen.
formal
Yeah.
and organized manner, of which we're not willing to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope.
What's lacking is the accountability.
yeah.
Yeah.
It goes back to vision again. I've always said I think there's one litmus test for Kentucky and every governor, whether Republican, Democrat, is the percentage of our population that's on Medicaid. If that's a single measure we look at, that's going to address a lot of issues, 'cause
Yeah.
it's both urban and rural. But poverty is the greatest challenge that we have in the state of Kentucky.
Yeah, and I think we have to kind of wrap up here, but I did want to talk about. I did want to ask this question, and we'll leave you with this. I guess it's one. I hope that you guys, Josh and Nancy, not to discount you, Steve. I don't. You're not really in leadership or didn't go for leadership, right?
Right.
Right. So, but I know, Josh. I hope you guys continue to try.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I think it's important that we at least have a choice. That you at least give legislators a choice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I don't think you should ever let any leadership feel comfortable.
I think all 5 positions should have been up.
Yeah.
Somebody
Should
should
have
have
been
ran for all
challenged.
5 because it's good for leadership to have a challenge.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
We've,
so-
we've said that in our own party and
Yes.
primaries.
Right.
It's good to have a primary.
Well, I think that another day at another discussion, we probably need to talk about
Yeah.
why people don't do that, why they're not willing to do that or able to do that to actually challenge
Yeah.
leadership. Yeah, so we could, we can do that.
Sure.
So, well, hopefully we can support you guys from out here.
Yeah.
It's not, maybe it's not as easy in that regard, but I mean, we can talk to our counterparts and say, how do we put a little pressure to get this? I'd like to get that one rule removed.
Modified, absolutely.
No one person should be able to stop
A bill.
Should be able to stop a bill.
Yeah, Josh, I don't remember, were there like 6 rules that we wanted modified? Something like that, 6 to
There
8.
was.
Yeah, 6
Yeah,
rules.
there was 6, and there was 3 that we felt was really important, and we could come have that discussion sometime, you know,
Sure.
what those rules were, and
Yeah, I mean,
because they're important.
That's something we
it
can
sets
put out-
the stage for everything.
I think it's something we can put out in like Meade Truth too, to put an article in that in one of our election cycles, so we can let people know these. I mean, because part of that is not just to get people elected; it's part of it's to educate people.
Yeah.
Right. And then
So-
what is our role as legislators who are actually selecting our leadership? What is our role in selecting that leadership in order for us to meet our commitment to our constituents?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's another
absolutely.
huge
Great
topic
point.
that we've been having
Great point,
within
yeah.
our body. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say from obviously 2 hats here. One, we've been doing, Mark, you and I have been doing this podcast now for like 3 years. I
3
think.
years, yeah,
Yeah. This started in the basement. This is a big improvement from the basement, right, Nancy?
it is.
And and today where we're at now, to be able to share this to the community and actually use multiple platforms. Obviously, I feel this is newsworthy anytime we have our elected officials on to explain our process and help educate. This is news material. It goes on the messenger, which I'm grateful to do. But our Meade Truth, it's really to get to the bottom of what it is and what things are in truth and not in an 8-second soundbite. So today you're actually hearing it from the people who are in the forefront for us. Y'all are the tip of the spear, to be honest with you.
That's right.
So I just want to say thank you for being here today to talk and gab with Mark and I, and thanks for putting up with my dad jokes and humor. But Mark, I know we've got a couple things coming up with the party. I
We
definitely
absolutely
want to throw
do.
that out and let's move into a transition. But Senator Meredith, Nancy Tate, Josh Calloway, you guys are awesome. And I'm not just trying to lift you up, but I mean coming out of an election, and Josh, to hear you say I'm focused on the family right now before we transition. I am too.
Yeah.
And Nancy, I know you are too. The kids are all coming in. You've got a grandchild about to be born. And Stephen, I know you'll be spending a lot of time with family too. So I think, catch
Happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
catch your breath.
Yep.
Mark, over to you.
So coming up, we do have our Republican Party Christmas party, or the Republican Christmas party will be at the venue at Roberts Family Farm. It's going to be December the 12th. It'll be from 6 to 8 p.m., 9 p.m. It's a little loose there at the end. But we are working on a couple of speakers. And we'll have more information on that. But the cost of it is $35 per person. We have you can buy by the table, tables of 8, or you can buy individual tickets. Either way is fine. And we look forward to having you all out. And then next year and one of these podcasts coming up, we'll be talking about reorganizations because the Republican Party as a whole breaks itself down every 4 years and rebuilds it from the precinct level up. I don't know how the Democrat Party organizes, but that's how the Republican Party does it. And so we go all the way down to the precinct. You elect captains at the precinct level, and those captains then go to the county and elect the county party, and then the county parties then go to the district and do the district party, and then the district parties the county parties go to the state and elect the state party. So it rebuilds itself every 4 years, and we're getting ready to go through that in 2025. So
Come be part of the process.
be a part of the process. If you want to change how things happen in your community, or you want to be a part of that, come out and start. You can start by joining the party and being part of the party committee at the local level. So
That's right.
Come out. We'll have more information on that coming out in the messenger. We'll post that in the messenger, as well as different phone calls and things like that. So we'll let you guys know when it's exactly going to happen in 2025. But we look forward to having you guys out and helping us with that. So,
Josh, did you have anything from your district in your area for your Republican Party you wanted to shout out?
Nothing specifically right now, but just stay tuned. We've got a new chairman over here, and he's been trying to be pretty active in social media to get announcements out there. So
Okay. Awesome. And then
he has theirs coming up as well.
great.
Okay.
Mark, back to you.
Yep. So that's it for me, really. I think I said everything we needed to talk about. The Christmas
Groovy.
party, reorganization. Our regular meetings are the third Monday of the month on at 7 p.m. out at the Simmons Realtor building out in Brandenburg Station. The
train station.
The train station. There will not be a meeting in December. We will pick up in January.
Come break bread with
Yep.
us.
So yeah, come out to the Christmas party. We really enjoy having everyone. So everybody have a great night.
Thank you,
And
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wave, yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you guys later.
Thanks, Josh. Oh, he's gone, I think.
Yep.